When people think of evidence for the resurrection, they usually think of the Bible. But there's a piece of evidence sitting in a museum that most people never connect to Jesus at all. It's in the Louvre. In 1878, a marble tablet was sent from Nazareth, Jesus' hometown, to Paris. Using multiple dating methods, scholars determine it comes from the middle of the 1st century, likely between AD 44 and AD 54, during the reign of Emperor Claudius, roughly 10 to 15 years after Jesus' death. The tablet is known today as the Nazareth Inscription. It's an imperial decree from Caesar, and it bans something very specific: removing a body from a tomb. Now that detail matters. Grave robbing was very common in the ancient world, but grave robbers never took bodies. Bodies had no value. They were after jewelry, valuables, or goods buried with the dead. So why would Caesar issue an empire-wide edict directed specifically at Jews, criminalizing the removal of a body from a tomb? Well, to understand why, you have to look at what was already being claimed in Judea. Matthew records that after Jesus' crucifixion, the religious leaders went to Pilate and they asked for the tomb to be secured. Now, their concern wasn't vandalism, it was theft. They said, his disciples may come and steal the body and tell the people that he's been raised from the dead. So Pilate sealed the tomb and he posted his guards there. That matters because this was what historians call a Caesar-sealed tomb. When the tomb was later found empty, Matthew tells us the guards reported what happened, and the religious leaders then paid them, the guards, to spread an explanation, to tell people, no, the disciples stole the body while we were asleep. And that story didn't disappear. Matthew says it was still circulating when he wrote his account of Jesus' life less than 20 years later. Now, connect the dots. By the time Claudius is emperor, Christianity is spread all the way to Rome. Roman sources tell us Christians were viewed as followers of a strange and disruptive superstition. And one of the central claims being repeated again and again by them was that Jesus' tomb was empty. And then suddenly, Caesar issues an edict banning the removal of bodies from tombs, specifically calling out Caesar-sealed tombs. That is not random. The Nazareth inscription, it doesn't prove the resurrection by itself, but it does tell us something crucial. The claim of an empty tomb wasn't invented generations later. It was already causing enough disturbance that Rome felt the need to respond to it. So the real question isn't whether people believe Jesus rose from the dead. They clearly did. The question is why an empty tomb explanation was necessary in the first place. And that pushes us back to the same conclusion again. The resurrection claim wasn't built on myth or legend. It was a response to something that actually happened. And what happened then is still changing the world 2,000 years later. So, I'll leave you with this to consider. Why would the Roman Empire respond to a claim like an empty tomb if it was merely a rumor or a legend? And how might that change the way you consider the evidence for Easter?